And Bob Boyce
Thank
has
you,
his
Donna.
hand up.
Yeah, I just
Yes, Bob.
I'm actually new to this meeting. I'm actually you can tell from my accent I'm from Britain originally, but I'm now in Ohio, in Akron, Ohio. I caught polio in 1955 at the age of 2.5. Probably was in London somewhere, and but I wanted to make a comment. I'm actually on the board of the Ohio Polio Network as well, and we have an Akron polio group which we meet regularly. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because when I come back to Kimberly's and Mona's point about trying to find doctors who know about polio, and my thought was that we ought to use our local groups, because the members of the groups, and we have members who actually need help, and they have searched out the people who can provide that. And maybe we could put together a list of some of the doctors in our areas who actually, and physicians and so on, who actually do know something about polio and actively know about it. So maybe there's something there, I think, Ken, that we could put together. We could coordinate a little bit better in sort of making lists. Certainly in the Akron polio group, we do have contacts and people we know who know something and know something about polio and have treated some of our members. We just need to try and expand that network. Yeah? I know, Mona, you said you sent out a letter to all the doctors in Quebec, but that's a big thing to do. And of course, what happens is, they don't really know about Polio Quebec or what it is or what credentials it has and all that sort of thing. So I'm sure they just ignore it. But I think maybe we should start a little bit smaller, use the networks we have right now. So across the USA and also in Canada and across the world. I mean, I know that there are groups all over the world like us, like the Ohio Polio Network. We just need to coordinate a little bit better. And if maybe, Ken, we can do that through the Rotary,
Thank you, Bob. And I think we can. And I think each person in this group probably has contacts that we can reach out to. One of the things I'd like to do is on Google is to create a place where either people could add the contacts to that list or send it to me and I'll put them in that list. So we have a list of contacts that we can start working on. I agree, Bob, that's probably networking at this point is going to be one of the real keys to this whole thing and to make it work. So that's one of the strategies I have, is to develop that so we can start, please, everybody start thinking about your networks. Each one of us probably has 4 or 5 or even 10 people that we can reach out to and start to get them involved in our network. And that's going to be one of the keys to this whole thing. And so the let's see. The question. I'm trying to keep to my agenda here, but the question I have, and I don't quite understand, why is the medical profession not interested in polio? I just don't understand why there's a lack of interest there.
Well,
even
you know
if
what,
it were for financial.
Ken, it's not a very sexy diagnosis. Do you know, it's not a broken body part, and it's not anything you can treat with chemotherapy. So getting a doctor to pay attention is very challenging, because the first thing they wanted to tell me is that, well, you're aging, of course you're going to have muscle weakness and things. Well, I was only in my 40s, and so that didn't fly with me. But it just dawned on me, and that's why I got up to get it. I don't know if any of you have seen this book, The Polio Paradox. Dr. Bruno is really the go-to guy. And there is a chat room on Facebook called the Post-Polio Coffee House. And people post questions, like, I'm living in St. Petersburg, Florida. Can anybody recommend a post-polio doc? And so sometimes that's where the information gets spread around. But I cannot urge you enough to get this book, because everything you have questioned about what's going on with your body is covered here in a really good way. This is an old one, the Post-Polio Handbook, and this was by Ginny Laurie, the polio people in St. Louis, the Gazette International Networking.
Yeah.
So that was another one. And then this one is another one by Laurel Halstead.
Yeah, we have all three of these.
Okay, because I have lots of these. I have lots of these books. So just for people who don't know, there is some information out there, but I still think the way to go is to hook up with medical schools, and we have to make, I think you have to make the outreach. I'm going to call the medical directors of the local schools, and I'm going to say, have me in, please. I need to come and talk, and I need to tell you what this is all about to the graduating, students.
You weren't blocking.
Thank you. Thank you on that.
Make yourself comfortable.
Mona, can you put
And-
the names of those 3 books in the chat?
But you want me to put these in?
Yes, good idea.
I'd be delighted.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And I hope everyone, I mean, Ken and everybody else, you are aware of Post-Polio Health International, that website, which does seem to be quite a good website in terms of information on post-polio syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely worth a visit. It's one of the sites that I regularly go to. They have a lot of resources there.
PHI, correct?
PHI, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And one of the things, I mean, and Bob, you had touched upon, Dick, you have a hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I just learned that Alan Alda, the actor, is very active in finding out he's got post-polio syndrome as well as Parkinson's disease. And so he's written a book about it, but he's a name that may be one of our facilitators. Secondly, I've spent the last 4 years educating my family physician about polio, and he just went as the Florida representative to the family physicians conference in Washington, D.C., and I asked him to cover what we're doing as well. So I hope he did it, and I'll check back with you.
Great, thank you. Ina, do you know Alan?
No, I don't.
Alden?
But I think I had told you I had suggested to Rotary International when they were trying to figure out vaccine hesitancy with COVID, to line up all of the well-known people who had polio, which included Alan Alda and Francis Ford Coppola and Mia Farrow, and I have now forgotten several of
Jack Nicholas.
Jack Nicklaus and Joni Mitchell, and to have those people say, I got polio before there was a vaccine, and I'm getting my COVID shot now. And I think there are people who would definitely step up and do that. I can't imagine Mitch McConnell, who had it, would ever do that, but what do I know? But there are definitely people who would definitely, I think, stand up and do that.
Without getting
Okay,
into
so
politics.
I mean,
Without
go
getting
ahead,
into
John, go ahead.
politics.
No, no
without getting
politics.
into politics, Mitch has been very active in post-polio syndrome awareness.
I've never heard that. Tell me where and
Yeah.
how.
Well, there's Rotary honors congressional leaders every year, and he's been honored for that, and he's been very instrumental. The United States government is the 3rd largest support money donations in the world,
Yes.
behind Gates and Rotary. And he's been very instrumental making sure that the Finance Committee in Congress on both House and Senate keeps that money not just to GPEI, but also to CDC. And,
Gotcha.
Again, not withstanding of politics, but I've been in his presence about 7-8 times at the Capitol, and he's very active in getting the word out about post-polio syndrome and the eradication of polio.
I'm happy to hear that.
And I have, there's no reason for me not to try to reach out to Alan Alden.
Mhm.
And the worst I can get is silence, but
Yeah.
you never know. You never know.
You
So I will find his contact information and reach out to him and see if he would come and speak to us about that.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we talk about, and Bob, you talked about is certainly contacts and networks and stuff like that. And there are groups around the world that are active or not active in this, and we need to coordinate with them. We need to find them. And those of you who know who they are, please send me the information on them. I'll reach out to them. So we're coordinating this project together with other groups that are already doing it. And one group that I came across was the European, Reg, you can help me on this, the European Polio Union, I think it was called, right? You're on mute, Reg.
Can you hear me now? Yes, you're right, Ken.
Yes, sir.
It's the information I've been able to find out about it is, well, it looks very dated. They haven't done anything since about 2018. However, they did have subscribing at that time representatives from virtually every country in Europe, and some of those may still be working. And I think I've shared those details with you.
Mhm.
Something which I'm writing
list that.
Yeah, something I'm writing
that Reg
to
sent.
Ken about just now is on the call today is Janie Ball. Hello, Janie. And Janie is the Polio Plus chair for District 9350, Region 28. That's South Africa. All 527 districts should have a Polio Plus subcommittee reporting to District Rotary Foundation chairman. So these are contacts that every Rotarian can make to the person in his district. You've got a direct link there. Every district has a Rotary Foundation committee chairman, and they have reporting to them a Polio Plus chairman. So you should be making contacts with those as well. And your local directory will tell you who those people are and what their contacts are.
Mhm.
Okay, excellent. We will do that. And that long list of people that were part of that European group, I'm going to see if we can I'm going to try to contact each one of them and see if even if they're still in existence.
Mhm.
There's a Mary or Jim who's got the hand up. Go ahead, Reg. Go ahead.
You're muted, Marianne.
Hello, this is Jim and Marianne Arnett. I want to let you all know that we are here in Mid-America. I'm the Polio Plus chairman for District 5710, which is all of Eastern Kansas. And I wanted to let you know that we are very active here because Marianne and I belong to two post-polio support groups. Marianne is a survivor from the 1946 cases here in Kansas City. We have an organization called Kansas City Post-Polio Survivors. And we also belong to another group that began with the support of PHI called the Branson Goers, Post-Polio Branson Goers, which has about 50 or 60 members. In addition to that, I also serve on the regional End Polio Now committee, and we are already beginning talks about the necessity for all districts throughout the entire region 36 to be recognizing that we need to be thinking about support for Polio Plus survivors and those that are now currently suffering from the syndrome. So your suggestion, Reg, was really right on target. We are really encouraging every district within our region to take this into consideration. One other thing, I really hope that we can also stay in touch with the Ragas group, and Annalie Hussey needs to be well aware of what we're doing, because she is certainly somebody that we should be trying to bring into this group and be an active member of this discussion. I hope to stay with you guys as the Rotary membership, and I think Marianne, you're going to try to continue to help us.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Jim. And we are in touch with Ann Lee, she said she gets the recordings. Last meeting she wasn't able to attend, but she asked me to send the recording to her, which I did. And I'm in touch with her as far as how we're going to get involved in her action group. And thank you, Reg, on that. There's a long list there of people we need to get in touch with, including the list that your contacts you're going to send me on all the polio plus people around the world, coordinators. I appreciate that. And we'll reach out to each one of them too. And Janie from South Africa. One of the things we need to do is start to build some awareness. And awareness is going to be through a marketing campaign, through a social media campaign. And I've also reached out to somebody who John knows, and that is Debbie Vance.
Mhm.
And Debbie Vance has kind of dedicated her life to Rotary graphics and develops Rotary graphics in all sorts of areas. And she and I had a conversation about joining this group, coming on board and start to build an image, a branding for us through her Rotary graphics. But also Janie and I have had a conversation, and we're going to continue this. Janie's involved in web page design. Janie, what is your background?
Dabbler. Yes, I have done quite a number of websites. Actually, starting originally with our landmark lighting campaign that we had in Cape Town. Well, we had 3 in a row, starting about 2009. So I did a site for polio then, and I've actually just done a site for a mutual friend of Ken and I's, Ken and mine. That was interesting grammar. So yes, I can certainly help with ideas. Having looked through quite a number of the sites, my goodness, there's a lot of information out there, and how we would try to distill our content into something unique that people would still visit and still find of value, I think would be the art in developing that site.
So the goal is to, and Janie, you had emailed to me, and maybe we can do a little poll here, informal poll on what are the sites that people normally go into on the social media. Is it Facebook? Is it LinkedIn? Is it Instagram? Is it Twitter? I mean, where are the sites that are most often used? Anybody have any comments on that?
I'll start off with the comments. I mean, I use websites. I'm not a great social media user, so I don't have a Facebook account, for instance, although Ken, I was able to find the link to this meeting by Googling and then finding your Facebook site, despite the urgings of me to log in and sign up for Facebook. I still got to the link. So for me, websites are, I just use websites, and that's what the Ohio Polio Network has a website. We look at PHI. Also, there is the Boca Raton group in Florida, which has an excellent website. Dick, I suspect you must be aware of that, and no Maureen Sinkule. But the more interesting that they look, the more they are attractive. I wouldn't say our website is necessarily totally attractive, but we're trying to do our best on that. So websites is definitely for us, but of course we are the older group, aren't we? So we're not so much into Facebook, Instagram, and all the other things that can be used.
Thank you, Bob. I mean, and the comment that we are the older group, and we are, but we're the older group in North America, or we're the older group in areas where polio was eradicated a long time ago. But in countries like in Africa or in Asia, there are a lot of young people there that we're eventually going to have to reach out to too. So that's a strategy that we need to think about okay, we need to get the African and Asian countries more involved in this. So that's important to do. So Janie, one thing we talked about was building a website for this group. Is that something that's possible, and can you do it with limited money?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. We could talk about the structure of that later. You know, a website is one of those how long is a piece of string things. So the initial structure of the website and doing the analysis of what information you want where and the wireframe, as we call it, of the website is not difficult to develop, but it does need to be thoughtful, and it needs to provide for the group going forward. So it can't just be as things are now. I don't know where this frog has come from, but it has. And the other thing, particularly with websites, is they're what you call a pull media. So people have to go there to get information. You can do things like set up lists and encourage people to subscribe and then generate emails that get sent to them automatically. Whereas by contrast, social media in whatever form is generally a push. So it sends the message out so much quicker. And just you're able to communicate on a one-to-many basis far more easily with social. So I'd be interested to know actually how much traction WhatsApp has in the States and in Canada, because it's become huge here. I wonder if I could just ask under the reactions button, if you use WhatsApp, if you can just raise your hand, or not raise your hand, just use the reactions. Oh,
Right.
Bobby, you're saying yes, you use. Okay, not many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, not a lot. I think this is going to take some research to find the right way to do it, and also to find the right content for the site. So it's providing the content that keep people coming back to your site. That's the art of the website. If you're not putting stuff that's new and fresh, and people aren't encouraged to visit there, it'll just sit.
And correct. And one of the things, certainly from, I have toyed with the idea of setting up a steering committee in this group. And the reason being only because there are things we need to define before we really move forward. And even with a web page, define who are we, what is our mission, and what message do we want to give out at this point. I'm not so sure we want to become another resource site for post-polio syndrome, although that could be certainly part of a web page. I think our mission at this point is to bring awareness to as many people as possible of post-polio syndrome, and what it is, and if we can bring awareness, we can bring more people into this group and start to get our message out. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Dick?
Yeah, I just would also mention, beside the Boca group with their website, there is Carol's Pennsylvania website, which is very, very extensive. So those two might be something to look at as examples that are directly aimed at post-polio syndrome, and information available for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. And Barretti? I'm terrible with names, I'm sorry. Baratti. Now your mic, you're on mute.
You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm physiotherapist and I'm also a polio case. I got polio when I was 8 months old, and I'm working with lots of polio patients and improving their physical energy. What I wanted was, we don't have any of such group, and I came to know about this group now for the first time. So, like, I have around 40 cases on my list where I'm trying to help them out to maintain their muscle power, to maintain their activities. And what I have noticed is by the age of 40, we all were running cases, like we were very, very active. After the age of 40, we all are slowly like losing our strength. Including myself, like, like I get scared to go out alone. I'm treating lots of patients, I'm working hard, but I still don't find the solution what to do about it. And in fact, Bombay doesn't have such group, at least to my knowledge, where we have so many cases of polio. And I think so we and Manju will take a lead to bring them together and help them out.
Thank you. And one of the things that I've been impressed with as I go around the world virtually is the dedication to the Rotaries in India. They're very dedicated to working the community. So it may be that through the strength of Rotary in India, and there are many, that we can kind of work on that. We need to get some connections there, I think.
I feel India has large numbers.
I remind everybody that the current president of Rotary International is from India.
Right. Right.
Sorry,
and,
I've missed that.
And the current president from Rotary is from India, and you wonder even how much awareness he has of the subject at this point. Probably not much.
No.
Manju?
Yeah, so I actually, after hearing Bharti, I really would like us, you mentioned Rotary International has something for post-polio. I'm not aware of it in Mumbai, and it may have been, been going on for years. So if someone could guide me how to connect with them, I think Bharti and I or whoever else, let's start the movement here also through Rotary, because I think it's much needed. I know quite a few of my friends who've had polio, and we're all in the dark. So I really would love to connect with all of you. I would love to be on the mailing list. And I think the more knowledge we have, the more awareness we can go forward.
Anybody who's not on the mailing list could just put your email in the chat. That would be great. Those chats are copied also. So afterwards I go back and I add you to the mailing list. So I appreciate that. And the thing is, Reg, you had mentioned at one point that you thought the statistics was that there were like 1 million people in India with polio. Is that true?
Yes.
Reg?
Sorry, I can't get in here again. Where are we?
My question
Sorry,
was the
Ken,
number of people
I
in
was,
India who have
I
polio.
got involved in something else. We don't know how many there are in India. I did hear a number, 4 million. I think you've got to remember that the high incidence of polio in India was at the turn of the century, between the 20th and the 21st century. And post-polio syndrome comes and hits people who have recovered, in inverted commas, about 30 years after first contacting polio. So it's just around the corner, I think, where we're going to see a huge explosion in India and other places too. I think this is a good point we should make here, actually. There's a distinction between post-polio sufferers, people who have some form of disability or difficulty following post-polio, and those people who have recovered, in inverted commas, from polio, but then 30 years later develop post-polio syndrome. They're two totally different areas, and I think it will avoid a lot of confusion if you admit to them being two different situations. That's why the Polio Survivors Action Group, being a subcommittee of it, if that's the way you choose to go, fine. But I think it'll be better to set up a Post-Polio Syndrome Action Group. The situations are very different.
No, it's a good point. I mean, there is a difference between polio survivors and post-polio syndrome. And there are different causes there. So it is a good point. It's a good point to make, and it's something we can certainly talk about. Like I said before, I would like to set up a steering committee to try to move this group forward. Reg?
I think the advantage of making the distinction is that other people who don't know much about polio, don't know much about polio survivors, and know nothing whatsoever about post-polio syndrome, it will help them to understand the differences.
Yeah, you make a good point. You make an excellent point. It is a process to set up an action group, but it certainly is something that can be done. Dr. Rita?
Good morning, Ken, and all the members of the group. So I'm from India, Chandigarh, and I was there at the last meeting also. So I also, besides being a Rotarian from Chandigarh Midtown, I'm a member of Health Education and Wellness Rotary Action Group, which is putting up a stall in Houston. So we also have a display, a poster about the post-polio syndrome. So as you have suggested, if we have some website and other details which we can put on it. And I would like to add that besides creating awareness, this site should be offering the treatments and management for post-polio syndrome. So I had shared a video last time by a doctor. He's from my district only, and the orthopedician who uses Ilizaro technique and hexapod to make people mobile and walk on their feet who suffer from post-polio syndrome. And he has done it for about 400 patients already. And he's looking for some support because many people cannot afford this treatment. So the Rotary clubs can sponsor the 50% cost, and rest can come in the form of grants. So I'm also looking for a global grant partner for executing this project. And we don't just have people from India taking treatment in this center in Kurukshetra, India, but also people come from many South Asian countries for treatment. They stay there for 6 to 9 months, and they are much comfortable. Like they recover around 60 to 70% before they leave the hospital. Yeah.
Okay, great. And why don't we talk and see? The Rotary Club of World Disability Advocacy has a network around the world of 1,000 people. So, and many of them are Rotarians. So let's talk about maybe we developing a strategy for that. I know we're working on right now Ukraine and trying to get mobility devices to Ukraine. So that's establishing a network for us there too. So the doctor, let's continue to talk about that. Deb, do you have a comment?
You're muted, Deb. You're muted, Deb.
Deb, you're muted.
She can't hear.
There she is.
This is a new computer for me, so I'm sorry. But anyway, what I wanted to say is, I saw your recording from the last meeting, and I am a Rotarian, and I try to get as much information to the Rotarians in my district as I can, and I really think that's the basis of where we need to start. A lot of the Rotarians do not understand polio and post-polio syndrome. And I was really excited yesterday when I went to my meeting. One of the girls came to me and said, that she had seen Jeopardy and she knew the answer. And she said, it's all because you've educated us, you know, and she said, I'm so glad you're a Rotarian and with us. But I really think there's a lot more we can do to educate the Rotarians. And once they're educated, they're going to get out there and they're going to work for us. So that's all I wanted to say. And and I am part of the PA Polio Network. And I'm glad Dick mentioned us. I was trying to do that, but I wasn't sure what I was doing here on this computer. But anyway, I'm here kind of covering for Carol today. She's enjoying her grandchildren out in Chicago. So, but that's where I think we need to start. And I think what the plans that you have, the things you want to do are great. So thank you.
I put the contact information for both the polio group and also the Pennsylvania group and also PHI's contact information in the chat.
Okay. And Deb, did you put your information in the chat? Because we'd love to keep you in this group and keep coming back. And
I can do that. Sure. Thank you.
okay. Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, you're right. I believe after building the Disability Advisors Group and the Disability Rotary Club, Rotary is our biggest source of they're a huge network. We can reach any country within a couple of days,
Right.
thanks to Rotary. So Rotary is going to be the key to what we're doing in this whole thing. Let me see, where am I at? David?
Yeah. You're muted, David.
David, you're muted. Okay, while we wait for David to get unmuted, maybe Div?
Yes, thank you very much. Quite exciting to hear all of these actions. And as I said in the beginning, only a couple of days since I've made contact with the Rotarians here in Johannesburg. But we are certainly meaning to approach and, excuse the pun, to infect the para-sport society with more knowledge of polio, post-polio, to get them to understand, because in the para-sport environment, you can imagine there are many disabled people, and in Africa, certainly many of them through polio. But it's glaringly obvious that it's not promoted very well. So I hope that when we meet again, we'll be able to report on progress. But certainly, as I personally, I'm African champion for PTS3 in para-triathlon. We will be donning logos and promoting polio and post-polio amongst the para sport society. Certainly here in Africa, it's a growing sport fraternity, and it has, of course, a very wide spectrum of participants. Amongst those, also medical doctors and other professionals that can do well with understanding and to actually not only understand, but to be exposed to what these athletes and what polio disabled people go through. So we'll certainly be following this, and we hope to share with you as we go along.
Thank you, Div. And in the in our disability group that we have a large number of people who are parasports around the world. And if you could put your contact information in there, I'd like to connect you with all of them. And they all are in different kinds of parasports. from blind football to there's a deaf group in Brazil. There's a group in India that does the darts. It's a dart group. So I mean, it's a full range of people in parasport. So if you can put your contact information, I'd be glad to get you in there, involved with those groups. David, you're back.
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Great. Couple of thoughts. First of all, hi friends. It's nice to see everybody this morning. You don't want to see me, so I'm staying off of video. It's too early in the morning where I live. But a couple of thoughts. One is that, Ken, if we pursue a solo action group, I think that gives us the opportunity to not have to seek permission as a committee of another group to go forward with our initiatives. So that's on that line. One of the other things I think our group will be interested in is that a week from this Friday, Crutches for Africa is loading a container in Western Pennsylvania that is going to Pakistan for polio survivors there. And throughout our conversation this morning, I keep thinking about my friend Aziz Memon, who is the polio director of eradication there in Pakistan. And so I'm going to make an effort to try to include him in our group, because he's got a tremendous insight on, what's going forward with the eradication. Now, I realize that doesn't necessarily focus on what we're talking about with post-polio syndrome, but I think he would be a very excellent contact to initiate that information dissemination throughout Pakistan. And he's also fairly closely associated with the effort in Afghanistan. And ideally, we can hook into promoting the information that we want to get out about post-polio syndrome through the organization and structure he's already got there. And yes, of course, he's a Rotarian as well. So those are my thoughts.
That's excellent. For those of you who don't know David, he heads up a group called Crutches for Africa and has been giving mobility devices to people around the world. He's been helping us out with Ukraine also. And David, can you help Dr. Rita in India get some devices there?
No, the problem there is that India manufactures their own. That makes it substantially difficult to be moving mobility, our surplus mobility devices that we collect back into India. So, we've done a lot of exploring that way, and we've had some very minor amounts of equipment that we've been able to get into India. But as far as getting a full container, I would love to, if we just had a workaround like it is with so many other countries with the difficulties we face with customs. That's always the issue. Well, and Ken, we're looking at the same thing in Ukraine. We're trying to figure out where the heck the stuff is landing. And we've got people on the ground that are willing to take care of the distribution. It's just there's the middle link there of clearing European customs and then seeing a clean transfer. So it's a matter of just staying on the warpath and trying to find a way to get it done.
Okay. Well, we can continue to discuss this, David. I know we continue to work on Ukraine. And if you could send your contact information from Pakistan, that would be great. I appreciate that. But Radhi, are you still, your hand's up? I don't know if you left from last time. You have another comment to make?
No, it's left from last time. I just have to put it down.
Okay, very good. All right, good. And Reg, your hand is up.
You're muted, Reg.
the quote
When
of
the
the year.
task force collects its thoughts and strategizes how it's going to move forward, may I suggest you actually verbalize what the objective is? Advocacy is only what it says. People are aware. But what do you want people to do? Are you looking to provide any special care for sufferers with post-polio syndrome? Are you trying to look up sort of organized social groups for them? What is it you're trying to actually achieve for the post-polio syndrome sufferers?
And I think we need to work on a mission statement, and that's why I'm saying if we had a steering committee, they could do that. But John, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a combination of things, but Reg, you're right. We have to decide, what our, objectives are, and we can't be something to everybody. And I think we also don't want to reinvent the wheel. And I think, in my opinion, utilizing the post-polio support groups and getting them acclimated to the Rotary's mission, and also how that the two things correlate. Rotary's running into, I often say that there's fatigue that polio survivors have. And then there's another fatigue. It's Rotary polio fatigue, because Rotary's been involved in it for over 35 years. And, a lot of Rotarians don't know that this truly is probably the most important time frame in all of those 35 years, because we're only down to 5 cases. And now is the big push. And the way I deal with Rotary clubs is to bring my message of how it affects somebody their whole life, rather than polio as a disease that you recover from. And, as Reg said, there's 2 different aspects of it. Well, okay, I have weakened leg because of the polio. Well, 20 to 40 years later, there's people who have post-polio syndrome. And I think the correlation between the two really have to be driven to Rotary. And the reason why we're trying to eradicate polio is to stop 30 to 40 to 50 years later, these people having the issues. I wish I knew about post-polio syndrome when I was in my 20s, okay? Because I certainly, well, maybe not, I was stupid then. If I knew about post-polio syndrome back then, I may have changed the way I physically operated. I think I would not be in a wheelchair today. And that's the message that we need to get across to all areas in a group, especially, medical people, physicians, physical therapists, and probably who helped me the most was a knowledgeable occupational therapist who helped me look at what I was doing wrong and what I can do to avoid overuse. And so we need to get to those people. So it's a multiple aspect of what we as a group can look at doing. But again, I don't think we should reinvent the wheel. The PA group, Mona's group, the Australian group, the PHI, all have great resources. In fact, our Polio Network of New Jersey that I was on the board decided that, we're not serving our group members efficiently because we can't keep up with the technology. So we basically are putting all of our group members into the Pennsylvania group and PHI, because that's where the sources of information are the best. And if you're in Canada, we're pushing them to Mona's group. So I think that's where we need to look at is where we get the information of where information is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. And the thing is, what we identified was there was a lack of awareness, and the lack of awareness is a problem. So now, if we can increase awareness, then we have to identify, okay, what do we want to do with that increased awareness? Is it, for example, in getting Rotary to be more aware of the post-polio syndrome so that they can provide more support, more funding? We talked about getting a call for action out of the foundation to do that. That's going to take some time to get to that point. But if we can get Rotary more dedicated to helping people, not only in the United States or in Canada or in countries where it's been eradicated for years, but most importantly, for those people in Kenya that are walking around, that are crawling around, and they don't, and then there's not even anybody have a idea how to help them other than the fact they're another person with disabilities. Well, they are, but they are a person with a typical kind of disability that needs to be focused on. So the idea is, if we can increase awareness among the Rotary, that Rotary can start giving more support to people who have polio. God bless them for eradicating polio, but giving more support to people who have polio. And then once again, somehow, maybe in tiny steps to reach into the medical community, to start, if we can reach into a small part of the medical community and change the life for 1 or 2 people, we don't have to do 100,000 people. It would be nice if we could, but even if it was just a small number of people, we've accomplished something. We've impacted somebody's lives. I don't know, Div, if you have your hand up or is it left from last time?
Oh, I have it up. I think
okay.
When we talk about objectives, here in Africa, and certainly it sounds almost impossible, but in South Africa especially, we need an awareness of what polio is. And post-polio, certainly in the rest of Africa and in South Africa in many ways too, everybody seems to be kind of ignorant about it. I'm one of those lucky ones that don't look disabled. I am severely disabled. And we find in Africa very much the same. There are so many people that have polio, have had polio, but have no knowledge whatsoever about the effects of post-polio syndrome. So it's something which in many ways I think has a varied message. But society have to take notice of the existence of what the ravages of polio is in later life. It's sometimes worse than it would have been when I was 4 years old. And certainly I think that's the message that's got to get out there. South Africans being polio free, and we get the injection as a matter of fact, automatically when you're young you are vaccinated. But and having said that, it's also part of where the total ignorance comes from. So we need a varied message about polio and the post-polio, and that it's not always visible. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. Thank you, Div. And Reg, do you have a comment? We probably should be ending
yes, we've
soon,
had,
but
we've had several references to Rotary taking action. I don't think people really understand what Rotary is. Forgive me for using these words, but it is not an autonomous group. It's a bottoms-up group. It's managed by a board of directors. The trustees are managed by the group of trustees. What you have to do is, through your districts, into your regions, convince your Rotary International directors and your Rotary Foundation trustees that there is something to be done. Only by influencing those people will you get the board and the trustees to do anything. So it's a long process. Don't think you can go in at the top. You can't. You have to go in at the bottom and work your way up.
Good point. Very good point.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, no, it's perfect. Like exactly how it needs to work in Rotary. I agree with you 100% and very much appreciate that. A lot of good information here. I've taken a lot of notes. We've got a lot of opportunities here to reach out to other people and good directions to go. And I appreciate all that. And I think we need to continue to do that. I would like to set up a steering committee. We can think about who may want to be on that committee. Just a smaller group, maybe 5 or 6 people, to try to start establishing what the mission statement is, what our branding is, what direction we want to take, what steps we want to take. I think there's a bunch of different areas we need to work on: communications, collaboration, marketing, bring in more membership, work on research. Is there a time we're going to need some funding? Should we become an action group? And I would like to bring here, if those of you know him, Tom Gump, who is the person who could give us advice on what direction we should take as a group, whether we should become an action group or a part of another action group. So I'm going to reach out to Tom and see if he could be the one to come in here and talk to us about what direction this group should take. And Janie and I are going to talk about marketing and see if we can create a web page. But I think we also need to determine what is the message going to be on that web page before we even do that. So there's some work to be done on that. So I appreciate it all. We've recorded most of the meeting. We'll share it all with you. Please think of other people you can get involved in this group. Please send to me, and I'm going to set up a spreadsheet of organizations we should get collaborating with. Please send to me any networking people you think are important on this, and so we can start to build that. I will reach Reg. I appreciate you sending me information on all the contacts that you have there, and I will reach out to them. So we should plan another meeting again. I think 2 weeks, which I think is June 8th, if I'm correct. Same day, same time, 2 weeks from today. Is that June 8th, John, the
Yes.
master of the calendar?
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I was going to mention about calendars, I'm going to set up a calendar because there's so many activities going on, and I think Dick had mentioned that. I'm going to set up a calendar, and we can start adding to it of all the different events that are going on with polio and post-polio syndrome and anything related to that. So we all have access to that calendar, so we can all know the type of things that are coming up. David, do you have a final word?
Yeah, Ken, that is the final day of the House of Friendship in Houston. So just be aware that some of us may be missing that meeting on that Wednesday.
Okay. We could make it 3 weeks. I hate to wait that long, but we could make it 3 weeks from today.
Well, I know it's just probably just going to be me, and I can always just listen to the recorded meeting. So I think
no, it's not. No, there's others. There's others too,
others.
David. There's I mean, Mark and others. There's others, many others that would be there. So let's put it off for 3 weeks. I hate to do that, but let's do it to get through Houston, and then we'll come back here in 3 weeks. Which I don't know. John, the date of that is what?
That's the 15th.
Okay. Okay, let's go. Let's do that then. 15th of June.
One last comment. On the 7th is the annual meeting of the polio survivors RAG at 2:30 Houston time, I guess it is.
Yes.
Yeah. So you might want to tag into that as well.
I will be there. Ina, thank you for being here. I hope
Thank
to
you.
talk more with you.
Ken, I learned a lot today, and I was grateful to be included. You know, all I can think about is that we have to address first, I think, the acknowledgement that this exists for so many people. And then I think we need to disseminate as much information as we can about what this looks like in all of the survivors. And then maybe resources, you know, how to find the right help, so that we can function at the highest level we can. So yeah, I was thrilled to be invited today. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you very much. And maybe you can make us all breakfast next time. How's that?
Deal. A deal.
That certainly would be a treat.
All right, thank you. Janie, if you could just stay on board, we can chat a little bit. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Thank you
Bye.
all. Bye.